Hello and welcome to another video. I'm just going to have a quick sip of drink, bear with me. Hello. Okay, so I'm in a car today doing a live chat, so forgive me if the sound sounds a bit weird. So as always, you can ask me anything to do with, I don't know, any crop circles, cattle mutilation, human mutilation, in terms of alien human mutilation, not human against human. Hi to everyone that's joining. You can ask me about contactees, abductees, alien implants, all kinds of good stuff. So someone's just wrote, has wrote, Jesus Christ is the only way. PSALM 91. So I kind of need a question with that. Otherwise, I could sort of. So are you? Obviously, you're saying Jesus is the man, but I'm quite happy to talk about Jesus, and I think where he comes from and who he was and why he does such things. So, and it's probably not what you think that I think, and I'm only going by obviously the original texts and things like that, not the copies. Now, speaking of original text, I was wondering why so many people on my posts were calling the Anunnaki the Nephilim, and I was like, why are they, the Nephilim are the giants. Why are they calling the Anunnaki? Because, alright, yes, they are big. They weren't the giants. They weren't the David and Goliath type giants. And I was rattling my brains thinking, why? And then I remembered that back in 1976, no, I didn't read the book in 1976, but back in 1976, Zecharia Sitchin wrote The 12th Planet. And in that book, he inadvertently calls the Anunnaki the Nephilim as well as the Anunnaki. So I went and double checked it last night just to make sure I wasn't mistaken, and yes, he does accidentally call them the Nephilim. So I think what's happened is people have read books copied from Sitchin's work, and eventually it trickles down to the people that's put in on my post saying no, they're Nephilim. So I've done a video that will be out soon that shows Zecharia Sitchin in modern times, in other words, not 1976, but prior to his death, where he actually says the giants are the Nephilim. So it sort of vindicates me and my research. So that's that's the difference between ancient texts. So it looks like Sitchin over a period of time had sort of worked out slightly more than what he did back in 1976, which is fine. That's what happens with researchers. So like I say, if you've got any questions at all, just ask. What are the Chimera people? So they're the types that are So you've got two trains of thought. You've got the people that say that they're genetically modified creatures, and then you've got the ones that say they're not genetically modified and they come through portals. I would probably go with the genetically modified, because just from the research alone, I would say where the Anunnaki were experimenting with DNA, and they come out of all of these different types of creatures that now have statues for them, the centaur and Pegasus and all these kind of things. That would make sense. If you've got like, for example, Enki could live on Earth for hundreds of thousands of our years, as we know, and his sister was a medical person and he was a scientist, and they created human. Yeah, they're gonna experiment. That's not to say there isn't creatures coming through from portals from other dimensions, but I think they certainly had a good good crack at it. Otherwise, people wouldn't have created all those statues. And I know people turn around and say, "Oh, that was just mythology," but some of those statues are absolutely identical, but in different locations. Even sometimes across the continent, different. So, for two people to sit there and carve out the same type of statue of a half this and a half that, I don't know. I can't imagine them doing it way back then, especially if they all believed in gods, because the gods would have turned around and said, "What are you doing?" and gave them a slap round the head if they weren't real. So, okay. Mr. Smuggles, I've got sunlight coming through. I'm in the car, so it's hard to read the writing. Forgive me. Funny old Star Trek had the Anunnaki bags in the show. Yeah. So if you see the statues of the Anunnaki, they seem to have sort of like this man bag type thing going on. Yeah, that's a good point. Benzania has wrote, "Do aliens exist?" Yes, I mean, if you're after specifics, I'm trying to be more to the point now on these live chats, because I end up getting so far behind. So if you want specifics on like Greys, Anunnakis, any of the other races, just sort of say, name the race, and then I'll waffle on why I believe they exist. Sorry, someone's just sent me a message. Reavers wrote, "Licensed elemental shamanic Anbite priest, and I have a lot of similar info." Okay, I'm guessing that's a person that's on YouTube or something. So Ivor has wrote, "Shadow people, so many theories. What's your thoughts on them?" So a couple of people's asked me that before. I kind of think they're real. Obviously, it's hard to say any difference to that, but if someone says something, the first thing I do is make sure there's enough people out there to collaborate that. So where I hear someone say, "Oh, I saw a giant pink dinosaur," then I would wait until I hear a second person and a third, and then I would start working out whether or not what they got to gain from it. It's like watching those videos on YouTube and TikTok, where the camera's just strategically placed to capture something, and then you think, hang on a minute, that's the first clue. Why was that there at that time? And the same goes for people talking about, for example, the shadow people. But so the shadow people, for those that don't know, are literally just a shadow of a person, and they can't, there's nothing there and no substance, and they come and go. So over time I tried to work out whether they're real and where they come from and things like that, and all I can come up with is that they can disappear from view. Now whether that's interdimensionally or whether they just phase out so that our vision can't see them. They're not bad, because I've not heard any stories on them hurting people. Obviously, they scare people by being there. But I don't think they're ghosts. I think they are a different breed of entity. I don't think they're jinn. I just think they are a different source of energy entity. That's all I can really say on the shadow people, because there's just not enough out there other than the people saying they've seen a shadow of a person. So I wish I could go into it more, but there's nothing sort of to grab onto. Reavers wrote, "Would love to talk at length someday." Yeah, maybe join one of my lives one day if you want. But just send me a message on any post. I read literally every post as much as I can, so just send me a message to say add you as a friend, and then I'll add you, and then we can chat separately outside. Benz has wrote, "How do you make a portal, not Minecraft edition?" It's a good question, actually. I mean, from a serious point of view, it's a good question, because obviously you go back to the Philadelphia experiment, and they created something using frequencies, and now you could argue, well, it's light frequencies or it's sound frequencies. I think with portals, I think it's Certainly a frequency. I know there's videos out there on TikTok showing these people doing portals in their bedrooms and things, but yeah, that's fake because lots of reasons, but just so happens that the angle that they're looking through this portal, so to the other side, is head height. In other words, the same height that someone would take a picture or a photograph or a video of. Why isn't the portal up looking down? Why is it sort of 5 to 6 foot high? So that's straight away, that makes me dubious. And it's a very pretty landscape they've got for the other side. So portals in your bedroom, I don't think are real, but portals themselves, I think they're definitely real. I saw when I was in, I've mentioned this before, when I was in Tenerife, was it Tenerife? I think it was Tenerife. I was on top of a hotel, they had a swimming pool, so I was laying there looking straight up at the sky, completely blue, and out of nowhere comes this black sort of triangular or black. My eyes weren't great back then, but it was a black shape that came out one way and then done a sort of, not a 360, but done a 90-degree turn, smooth turn, and started going off. And the person I was with, I nudged and said, "What the hell's that?" She looked and said, there was no sound, and she had contact lenses, so she said it was a diamond-shaped craft, and it went off. And then 5 minutes later, a black helicopter went the same direction, and both of them went to Mount Teide, which is a volcano, and we know that UFOs go to. So anyway, the point was, that literally came out of nowhere, but I didn't see anything other than it just appearing out of nowhere. I mean, I know people could say I'm lying, but I was with someone, and although they only saw the tail end of it flying off, but it came out of nowhere. So, and we know that NASA has actually admitted that there's, and if you don't believe me, go and check whether or not you want to believe NASA, but the fact that they're actually admitting that there's portals between here and the sun, certain places, I think they call them X points. I might be wrong on that. It's been a while since I looked into it, but so portals are a real phenomenon according to NASA. So yeah, but frequencies is how you would make a portal in some way. I'm not an expert. I haven't tried it myself. Morning, Mickey says, "Morning, my friend. Make sure to hydrate." Yeah, thank you. I've put my bottom milk. I'm in a car at the moment, and I had a sip just before I started. Thank you very much for your concern. Davon has wrote, "Tell me about the Council of Nine." Okay, so what I do is I do a bucket load of videos, and they're all on my drafts, ready to upload to TikTok. And sometimes there's videos that I've done of things that people asked about, and I don't really want to waffle on here about it and then have the same thing come out on the video. So if you just keep watching, it's kind of like a hook to keep people watching. Forgive me, keep watching, because I get to the Council of Nine, because I also talk about the Council of Aliens in depth, and I also talk about the Anunnakis, 7 judges a bit more. So forgive me, I know I'm sort of here to talk, but if I repeat myself on everything, then people get annoyed probably. Sorry. Amanda's replying to people. She's so smart, Amanda is. And now she's probably going to give me one of these thumbs up, hearts up. But thank you, I can see the hearts and things. I could also see people laughing at me, so it's all good. Okay, Billy's wrote, "Do you think it was cruel that the Egyptians used to fill tombs with live bees?" I've not heard that. That's not to say it didn't happen. I've just not heard that. The tomb side of things, I've sort of not stayed away from much, but I've not dug too deep into it, because once they're dead, I wasn't too bothered with their history, if that makes sense. Obviously Tutankhamun was important because of his mum and dad and the fact that he's got a elongated head. So I'm not familiar with that, so I will actually look into that. Thank you. That's something that has now intrigued me. I'm not quite sure what the benefit of them putting live bees in there would be. because if you're already dead, I guess the live bees would be for tomb robbers. And that's the only thing I could think. And they did have some tomb raiders back then. Hey Roland, who says hey. Dave has wrote the collective hive. I'm guessing he's referring to the tomb of bees. Okay, so Ravens asked thoughts on theory that life is like a simulation, i.e. the Matrix. UFOs could be glitches. Yeah, I mean, I've seen the videos of, what looks like aeroplanes being stuck in the sky and birds being stuck in the sky, and some guy had to actually poke the bird for it to fly. But we also know that birds can stay on thermals and literally stay in the same space. But regarding us being a simulation, so this is something that Linda Moulton Howe was looking into, and I know people have come out with the simulation thing. I'm leaning towards that we are an experiment. The universe, our universe, is an experiment. I'm kind of leaning towards that story I did on one of the videos where the guy hummed against one of these ancient stone gates that they called them, but we call them doorways, and ended up in another place where our universe was being held back by a force field, by an alien race that accidentally created our universe and can't stop it from expanding, because they were messing around like we do with CERN. So who's to say that we're not accidentally creating a universe, all right, microscopic to us, but obviously to the people inside that universe, maybe it's not microscopic, but so that's where I'm sort of leaning. I'm thinking that if we are in some sort of simulation or matrix, I don't think it's a simulation per se, I wouldn't have said, but the fact that someone wants to sit and watch what we're doing day in, day out, or have created all of this just for it to run on its own, I can't see the logic on that. I mean, yes, it could be a game, a child's game, and we're all in this bloody simulation, but I'm leaning more towards that our universe was possibly created by some stupid scientists doing stuff in a lab somewhere. Amanda's really replying there. She's on the ball today. Mr. Snuggles has wrote, they also had Men in Black neutralizers in the episode Dagger of the Mind, going back to Star Trek. Yeah, I mean, these neutralizers, I know people laugh at them, but it's got to be about 6 or 7 years ago. You can look it up. Scientists said that, and this was in the States, I think it was, scientists said that they actually have the ability to make a mouse forget its short-term memory using light. Now, obviously, they can do it to a mouse, and they did it 7 years ago. We know that the military is about 40 years ahead of what we know here. So that makes total sense that the Men in Black were using these. Military is about 40 years ahead of what we know here. So that makes total sense that the Men in Black were using these devices. So yeah, definitely they can wipe our short-term memory. Light can, and there's a few other stories I could waffle on about how the light does actually affect. Sorry, someone's driving really close to my car while I'm parked up. Okay, I'm going to move on. So Amanda's asked, why would UFOs be glitched? Yeah, I mean, that was what the person earlier mentioned about simulation and UFOs glitch. So yeah, I don't think the UFOs are glitches. I think the UFOs are UFOs. Jane has wrote, well, this is very interesting. Thank you. Please join my YouTube channel as well, because I also put these live chats on YouTube as well as the videos on TikTok. And start from video number 1, because sometimes, unfortunately, people go straight into number 300 and something, and then they comment on that, unfortunately, without knowing the rest of the backstories to some of these things that I talk about. Yes, Jimmy's. Hi, Jimmy. So, yeah, I asked you what you think about mermaids yesterday, but I didn't have enough time. I didn't. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I did a couple of videos on mermaids, showing that in the past, they certainly believed there was mermaids, as opposed to a folklore type thing. There was people drawing them, the stories of them. I will be going back round doing everything that I've already done. I'm going back round doing in far more detail, like I am now with the Anunnaki. Um, so they certainly believed there was mermaids. The You've got people like Emery Smith, who says he's worked on mermaids, and there's an underground facility, or under the ocean facility that studies them. Actually, studies these half man, half fish. I'm guessing he had one, a dead one, that he was doing experiments on because that's part of his job. So where they got the dead one from, I'm hoping they didn't kill one to get one. But he was talking about what they looked like, what their skin's like. So if you're interested in a bit more about what he says, now I can't vouch for him. He One of the reasons why I was slightly worried about Emery Smith is he's a civilian. So yes, that gives him reason to be able to talk about these things, as opposed to if he was military, because he would have been certainly under an NDA. I would have thought he would have been under an NDA anyway, but he's talking about these things. But he talks about a hell of a lot, and that's what worries me. He talks about how a portal works, or from up here on the top of Earth, so he could get into the inner Earth, and he was describing all the mechanisms and what needs to be done, etc., because he's a biologist. So I'm thinking, this guy knows an awful lot. If you go to somewhere where there's a portal, I can't imagine the military's going, yeah, mate, this is what happens and that's what happens. And I might be wrong, but he knows a hell of a lot for someone that's a biologist. Now, he's got his own show, actually, on YouTube, and now he interviews people. But if you are interested in his story, Emery Smith, you can find him on YouTube and things like that, and Coast to Coast. So he believes there's mermaids. I'm on the fence at the moment. I know, and I know there's other videos out there showing purportedly mermaids, etc. But I'm on the fence as to whether or not there is, because I don't know. I'm on the fence. I can't say I believe that at this point. Ice has wrote, do you think ghosts are all demons, or were they people once? So I struggle with demons, because every time I asked someone what a demon is, they sort of don't reply, and I struggle because I kind of want to know what people think demons are. I could say a monster, and and what is a monster? Well, describe the monster. Okay, well, mine's got 6 legs. Oh, okay. So a demon, no one can describe a demon, and so to me, a demon is something evil. So whether that's Bill Gates or someone, an evil entity, it doesn't have to be human. A demon to me is something evil, whether or not it's what race it is irrelevant. That's to me, because no one can actually describe a demon. So ghosts, ghosts are deceased people. So I don't know how much you know, but so there's an entity that joins with us, a light being entity that joins with us when we're being born, prior to being born, and that just leaves us when we die. And that's all to do with the pineal gland, long story. But when it dies, you and this entity, everything that you've lived through, your memories, your thoughts, and everything else are still with it. And then that's basically kicking around as a ghost, and then it can cross over and then come back later on as a reincarnation in someone else. So yes, ghosts are real. There's other entities out there like the jinn, But yeah, ghosts are people once. Jen has wrote, new here, hi, welcome to our little chat. Aliens or demons? Like I just said, I think demons are just a name for something, and aliens are real. So if you want to know, as mentioned before to someone else, if you want to know specific about why I believe one particular race of aliens is real, I could waffle on about what kind of proof there is that that particular alien race. But I don't think there's a thing as demons as such. I think it's just something that one day someone said about something evil. And Isaiah has wrote, Jesus Christ is the way. Again, I would love to chat about Jesus Christ, but I kind of need you to tell me what your thoughts are. Is Jesus the son of an almighty being, or do you think Jesus is something else? I'm interested to know where your thoughts are on it. Gala has wrote, I think aliens are workers in this place. Well, the little greys certainly are. The Orion android greys are the worker bees. But here, the military's now created the same type of greys. So yeah, they are workers. Amanda's replying to people. Okay, so Matty's wrote, what's your thoughts, basically he's asked them, what's your thoughts on the flat earth and the firmament? So just going back to the firmament, unfortunately people don't want to go back to the original text like I do. They just want to hear what someone says. So when you go back to the original text, where they're talking about the firmament, the Anunnaki struggled to get through the atmosphere, and the atmosphere is the firmament. That's what we've obviously, a new name is atmosphere. That's something that we called it, but back then there was no atmosphere name, so it was firmament, and they struggled to get through it, which they would. They were in rocket powered ships, so it makes total sense they struggled to get through it. Unfortunately, roll on to today, people think, it's an impenetrable dome around the flat earth, but it's not. So you go back to the original text where Enoch talks about above the firmament is he can see the stars in the heaven. Those are his actual words. So straight away we know that the firmament doesn't contain the stars, even though people say they do. So it's outside of the firmament or atmosphere. And heaven, we know now that it should have been changed to space, because back then there was no word for space. So everything was called heaven, but really it's space. So we can see the stars in space, so that makes sense. So I totally believe I've asked some very, very simple questions about to flat earthers, very simple questions, and to the people that think there's a firmament. And the one simple question that no one's answered is Halley's Comet, 70-something years. I thought it was 73, but someone said the other day 76. But either way, 70-something years, it flies around Earth now. And that we've got records of that dating back over 1,000 years. So where does it go if it hits the edge? And is there another little person on the other side setting it back off again? So yeah, it's definitely a globe, because no one can answer my simple questions. Mickey's wrote, sounds like a Horton hears a Who kind of deal. I'm just reading. In the realm enclosed system. So Matty's just talking about the enclosed system. So no, I don't think we are. The logic isn't there. The fact that the Anunnaki in carvings actually drew the 12 planets, theirs being the 12th planet. We're the 7th planet, which is why the 7 is prevalent to the person that was talking earlier about 7, Council of 7. 7's quite important, so is 12. But Yeah, definitely no. There is space out there, unfortunately. Even though NASA lies and they do whatever they want to do and they film Mars and pretend it's Mars when it's not. There is space out there. Mickey's asked, is YouTube channel the same name? Yeah, you might have to type parts in. So I just type in Outer History Parts, Parts, and that's because other people's got obviously Outer History, and they talk about different things or whatever. Oh, he's disregard. I found it, but okay. Well done. You've subscribed. Thank you. Amanda's doing her thing. Replying to people. I'm gonna have to start learning from Amanda at this rate. Okay, excellent question. Fuel Burns has wrote, where's the best to learn about the gods and the beginning? So I say Sitchin. However, just as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this video, some of Sitchin's stuff, earlier stuff, he sort of slightly changes towards the latter end because obviously he learned a lot more, and that's understandable. Sitchin's stuff. So there's about 200 people that can actually translate the original texts. So you have to kind of use logic as well. A lot of them agree, most of them all kind of agree with what each others have translated. There's very few that sort of say, and even if there is a discrepancy, it's not a huge discrepancy. It's just a translation of a word, for example. So it's not. So Sitchin's work to start with, some of it's heavy going. The Book of Enoch, obviously. Anything to do with the Dead Sea Scrolls, so if you can read that. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which I'll be getting to on videos. He's quite important. And if you want to go, further back than that, Marduk, which was the planet's name that hit with Tiamat. But that's all. I'm probably going too far back, but but when you start using logic and you see that the names of the gods match the names of the planets, then you start thinking, okay, that kind of makes sense. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. Yeah, Amanda's actually wrote the same thing. Best place to start is Sitchin's books. Roland, he said Bill Gates for real though. Yes, I mentioned demons earlier, and somehow I don't know but I saw a picture of Bill Gates suddenly, and that's why I splurted out Bill Gates. Nothing to do with demons, honest. Yeah. Amanda's asking someone a question. What? Matty's wrote, is the universe made up of planets in our solar system like we have been told, or is it different? No, it is. It's the same. And you got to remember, the earliest writings was prior to humans being on this planet. So once you grasp that, then you got to think, okay, who wrote that earliest stuff, which is obviously the Anunnaki, or Elohim, if you want to know the real race name. Once you realise that they wrote all this stuff and carvings and stuff prior to man coming, then you look at their pictures of themselves with 12 planets and the stars, and there's a lot of carvings out there of the celestial objects. So they knew what they was doing, and they called us the seventh planet. We call us the third rock from the sun because we are here. But when they came in from outside, from the edge, from the 12th planet, they counted backwards, obviously, because that's what they were doing, and we're the seventh planet, not the third planet. So yeah, no, there's definitely planets out there, and it is as they said it is. New here to Alexander, he's just said he's new here, or she, sorry, Alexandria. Forgive me, I'm in a car with light shining on my phone. Hi there, hi to everyone that's saying hi. The real something has wrote, why does palm reading work? I've not looked into that. I don't know if it does. I'm I honestly don't know. I know clairvoyance, and I've been to a few. Some of them are absolute scam artists. One of them said that I'm going to be a gardener, and I'm going to love gardening. Yeah, that I knew. As soon as she said that, I was like, "Yep, no, that's not going to happen." But one of them, I think she's probably long past since, but she was absolutely fantastic. So she nailed everything, and I had a tape of what she said. This is going back years ago. She was so good. So yeah. Palm readers, I'm not sure on. I'll be honest, I've never looked into that. But clairvoyance, I know a lot about. Okay, Matty's replying to Amanda, and that's the issue, not being told the truth. So I find myself just, yeah, we do get lied to a lot. Sorry, I'm just scrolling down the messages. Sorry, just trying to read. There's some chats going on between people. Matty's just saying that he doesn't think the flat Earth view because it rejects the idea of space. Well, some people say that outside. It goes back to the texts where they say. At one point, someone in one of the texts ancient texts mentioned above us, so below, and waters in the heavens or waters in the sky. Now, that's actually something I'm currently looking into, because I have a feeling, because it's all to do with context. It depends who's writing that. Now, if someone that's not an alien, that's a bit dim, that's been told what to write, sees clouds up ahead, up in the sky, and they pour down with rain, to that person, is that not an ocean dropping down? Do you see what I mean? So I'm trying to look into seeing whether or not that's where I'm thinking it's. Yeah, Joker's just wrote the same thing. Are there waters above Earth? I don't think so. I think it's just people that have misinterpreted the descriptions of everything. No, other than that one or two references to water, there's no other water described from the Anunnaki, from when they were traveling back to Mars, back from Mars to Jupiter. Nothing mentions water whatsoever, so I can't see there's water out there. Ravers wrote, I found out about the portals in Antarctica as well as a few others, and they activate with a rhythmic harmonics tone. Okay, that's interesting. Which again, sound is a frequency, so that would make sense. Amanda's asking, can you send us some info on that? And then Amanda's wrote, frequency is the key. See, I'll be learning off Amanda soon. Reavers wrote, I'm a licensed elemental shamanic Anabite priest. Cool. Be very interested to hear more about that. And he started training at 6. I'm guessing he's a he, forgive me if I'm wrong, and he's now 34. The only thing I have very little knowledge on is aliens, laugh out loud. Hopefully you've come to the right place. Unfortunately, my brain's full of alien crap. I wish, sadly, before I do these live chats, I think, there's so many sort of smaller things that I haven't never spoken about on the live chats that, but unfortunately, obviously, people sort of just asked the main question, so I just repeat the main narrative that I've got. But there's so much more out there that I can talk about, but until sort of I get to those little bits that someone asks about, then it's hard for me to suddenly bring them up and remember them. Christy has sent a rose ×3. Oh, thank you very much. I'll share that with Amanda for doing her excellent work, and for the rest of the people with their excellent questions. So thank you, that's lovely. Ravers wrote, literally had to travel the world during the 90s to find true knowledge. Yeah, I mean, you can't find true knowledge in mainstream, so yeah, it's a shame that you had to do that. But Reavers wrote, clairvoyant skills can usually be connected to the pineal gland. Yes, that's exactly where I'm with that. That's spot on. That's exactly what. Yeah, so I can waffle on about that as well. But no one's asked a question, so I'll just keep going. TIANY has wrote, gardening is also what you're doing now. You're planting the seeds of knowledge. Yes, I suppose you could say it that way, but no, she said I would be out there with green fingers. No, she was a con artist. That was 15 quid down the drain. But it was, sometimes you need these things to learn the difference between a real one and a crackpot one. I'm just scrolling down. NAX Testers wrote, which religion do you believe to be the most accurate? It's a really, 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 really good question, because no one's actually asked that. So in my videos, I've done a video where I say where I think the first proper religion come from. So obviously you've got the Anunnaki, which the 12 main Anunnaki, which are the gods. We call them the gods because that's what they wanted to be called, or worshipped as gods. They were, the princes and the king and so on and so on, and that lineage. So they were the 12 gods. But underneath them, you had the Anunnaki, which is what we call the Anunnaki. So technically, they're all Anunnaki. And then you had the Adam and Eve, and then you had their lineage, which was obviously the Adam and Eve were hybrids from the Anunnaki as well as the indigenous species. And then eventually you come down to Abraham, which supposedly was the first person to create a religion. Now, if you put it all in context, if I was there and I was watching all these people worshipping these gods that you probably never saw half the time because they were out doing their mining for gold and whatever else they were doing, I would, if you've got people that are willing to worship gods, I would knock up a religion. I'm not that type of person, but someone would knock up a religion and say, oh, follow me because and then make up some name. And then people start following this person because in that time, that was the done thing to do. You had gods that would produce rain, or people thought that gods were producing the rain, when we know differently now. But back then, you got to remember, these are people that was created by the Anunnaki to mine, so they didn't have much education or anything like that. So if you've got one person that suddenly says, oh, I know, let's make a religion, then that makes sense. So that's no different from now. Everyone following, how many religions are there? So as far as a religion goes, I don't think there's any real religions, even the one that Abraham done. I just think, unfortunately, people's used it to their advantage. So, if you want to say a religion, then we're supposed to be worshipping the Anunnaki who created us, but there was no name for that religion because they didn't call it a religion. It was just, we created you, therefore you work for us. So as far as religions go, I think, unfortunately, it's just greedy people manipulating people. It's not much different from a cult. That's just sadly how I see it. It's quite sad, I know. Reaver's writing some fantastic stuff, but I can't really read it because they're not questions. But it sounds like he's got a lot of stuff to talk about. IKJNFY has wrote, biggest truth you have. Oh, that's a good question. What would be construed as the biggest truth? Let me think on that. That's a really good question. I need some time to think on that. Sorry. Ice N has wrote, I have to go now. Thanks. This was interesting. Hopefully, if you're still around, this will be on YouTube some point, probably next week. To be honest, my computer's still down. Do aliens have race like black ones and white ones? And that's by URIA. It's a good question. Obviously, the greys are grey, the whites are white, the Palladians are white. These are just from what the descriptions I've been told. The Nordics are sort of pale skinned. The Anunnaki, from what I've read, were pale skinned. Now, bearing in mind the Anunnaki were here for over 100,000 years, so if they got a bit sun tanned, then we can forgive them for that. But I'm just trying to think what other races. The Aryans, pale, blue eyes. Obviously, you got the bird type ones, which are blue. You got me on that. I don't know. I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm just throwing out the ones that I'm thinking of just off the top of my head. I've never heard them say they're in different colours. They seem to be all the sort of same colour. So I guess from that point of view, Earth is quite unique. Which would explain why Betty and Barney Hill, who were she was white and he was black, were one of the first peoples to be abducted by the Zeta Reticuli aliens, because they were really interested in what the fact that there was two different coloured people, and that's, I think, is why they got picked. Hopefully that kind of answers your. H. Horry has wrote, is the love the essence of life? No, I'm sorry. It is for you while you're alive, but just from the fact that the entities that join with you after, all they're doing is learning. They're not good or bad. They're just learning. So although when you die you feel like there's love, the amount of love, this is what people say when they pass over. They say, it's full of love, I wanted to stay there because there was all this warm, loving feeling. That's fine, but you do that for eternity, that loving feeling is going to go away pretty quick. So that's why they get that loving feeling. It's not because it's eternal loving feeling. You will get bored of that loving feeling probably after a week. It's like watching a small large TV. For the first 5-10 minutes you're thinking, wow, this is massive, it's great. After 5-10 minutes you forget that it's a massive large TV. And the same goes for the love. So the entities, they're not about love, they're about learning for themselves, even though they're joined with you and you think that that's what it's all about. But I don't think love, happiness is anything to do with them. Or it's you while you're here, yeah, great, lovely, but not when you cross over. Once you cross over, that's it, really. Okay, I'll just waffle on. Does modern day religion tie into this, or is it just man-made? I don't know if you just heard what I was talking about before, about the first one being Abraham's religion. So after that, then other people started coming up with ideas of, hey, if he can get loads of people following him and doing his stuff, then I'll come up with a religion. And I think that's literally all it was. There's no proof in terms of the religion that connects to any of the Anunnaki. No, there's no connection whatsoever, other than them, doing, for example, the Book of Enoch, where it does say in the Book of other than them, doing, for example, the Book of Enoch, where it does say in the Book of Enoch, I'm writing this book and this is what people need to listen to, but I know they're gonna recopy it. I'm paraphrasing now, but humans are going to copy this book and change it, even though they shouldn't be changing the word of God. So it all makes sense that there was no real religion at the beginning, and man-made down the line, as with all greedy things that people can do to manipulate other people. Amanda's replied saying, they say there were 3 races, black, white and yellow. I'm kind of not I'm not sure where she's talking about with that. What race she's on about. Horries wrote, when you leave this plane, where are you going? So you die, you stay around the astral plane unless you go over. So you can cross over again. You can cross over, I think, off the top of my head, 13 times, is it? I'm just looking at the clock, you see, so I'm running out of time. But you cross over to the astral plane, and you're a ghost, you float around, do whatever. And then eventually you cross over again, and that's it. That's the end of you. You cease to be you anymore. And now this entity that had you has also got however many other lives that it's lived, all within its memory bank, shall we say. And then it gets sent back to join another baby and start the whole process over again. So unfortunately, you sort of only survive a little bit until it crosses over, which is quite sad, but I guess we will have to die at some point. Reavers wanted to ask you if you've ever heard of the continent theory when it comes to religion. If not, I can explain. I've not heard of that. I've not heard of continent being connected with religion, sorry. But I would be interested to hear. There's 33 messages. I'm going to whiz through them now. Rufus has asked, is I'll spell this for the people who don't know. And I'm terrible at pronunciations, that's why I'm doing it. Yahoo, but not Yahoo as in the search engine, or is Yahoo on Nibiru? So technically, if you go back to, for example, the 12th Planet book by Sitchin, he makes it sound like this was all prior to the Anunnaki, prior to any sort of life in our little bit of part of the solar system. I think it was probably another planet that was here that got smashed, and which partly formed the asteroid belt. So I'm being a bit cagey on this one because I'm still in my own head formulating. The more you keep researching, the more you sort of learn different things. So I'll hold off on giving a definite answer on that one. Sorry, I'm just being honest. Just whizzing through ever so quickly now. Don't forget, you can get all of these live chats plus all the videos on YouTube, Our True History, as I'm trying to read down here. Why did the Anunnaki leave Earth? Good question, and that's from HARDS. Because they got what they needed. They didn't want to be here. They didn't set up roads. They didn't set up infrastructures. Yes, they did set up cities, which we know was ancient. The main ones were Mesopotamia. But that was it. They didn't start colonizing anywhere else other than for the reason to do what exactly they needed to do. They weren't here for fun. They were here to get what they needed and then bug off, and that's what they done. They done what they needed. That's the way I see it. Someone asked the same question. I think it was the same one. What happens after you die? I've mentioned that. Hopefully you heard that. Why do they abduct a lot of gingers? I've not heard that. I've never heard that. Never ever heard that. I do try and find out. I do try and catalogue, various different things that people may have been abducted for. Intelligence. Are they working on, rocket ships, or are they, a housewife, or are they, got RH negative? Are they old? Are they young? I kind of go through that, but I've never heard of gingers. And if they did take gingers, it's because the gingers are the smartest race in the whole wide world, because we can't discriminate against anyone, can we? What's your Matty's asked, what's your thoughts on the conscious, on thoughts on everything being the part of the same consciousness? Yes, I think there is certainly an element to that, and I know George Lucas obviously knocked it out with the Force in Star Wars, but so the entity that joins with its soul group, which is a group of at least 6 that I'm aware of, and then that group of 6, which become one, joins with everything. So that's how I believe you can remote view, and you can the quantum entanglement theories and stuff like that. So yes, I do think there is something that's in it that we're all part and parcel. Plus, obviously, the ancient writings say similar to that. Trigix has wrote anything on blood types. So I've done some videos, if you haven't already seen them, on Rh negative being the main culprit of discussion, because as you probably know, it's the only blood group that can possibly kill a baby on any species on the whole of Earth. So there's an issue there with the Rh negative. Have a watch of the videos, because I'm just running out of time, but I had to do them on that, and I will be going back around in a lot more detail about the blood types, etc., and the bloodlines as well. Sorry, I'm just reading. Matty's wrote something, but I've literally got a minute left, so I'm just going to whiz through. Why did the Anunnaki leave Earth? I've read that already. Trigits has wrote, are the aliens monitoring the astral plane to study the death and rebirth process? So the Greys, the little Greys, fully aware of the entities, the light beings. They're actually, the tall whites are part of the council, from what I understand, that send you down as, you know, your light energy into whatever body that you agree before you're born. So I've heard a few stories from abductees where they've seen the little greys with these light energies, the balls, shall we say, orbs, and putting them into containers or walking around with them. So they are, and they've even transferred them from one person to another, to a clone, apparently. So and they're the ones that call us containers. So when we're abducted by the little android type greys, they call us containers, and that's all we are. So yes, they absolutely work with the light beings. Another different Amanda's wrote, what do you think about splitting? Thinks it's the aliens' biggest, or etc. Sorry, I'm not quite sure how that's. What do you think about splitting? Thinks is the aliens' biggest, or etc. I'm so sorry. I can't. No, pretty much gone over my time as well. So forgive me. I'm just going to try and go down. I didn't know what that meant. Sorry. Okay, so Mrs. Shea has wrote, are we in a different dimension right now because everything seems to be so strange? A parallel universe. No, I don't think we are, but I think we keep, for whatever reason, we keep jumping across, or people are jumping backwards and forwards as well. So if you've watched my videos on time travel, that kind of hopefully makes sense. If you haven't, go back and try and watch them, and you'll see how we get shoved off a different timeline because people going backwards in time, and that would, I think, explain some of the Mandela effects where we remember something but now it's slightly different. And Amanda's reply back to that was a very good point. Might be because of the increased vibration of the earth and awareness increasing. What do you think about time travel? I've done videos on time travel. Have a look at them, and then when I do another live, if you can. Wow, someone's a massive heart just popped up in my face there. It was just really nice to see. Sorry, time travel. Yes, so I've done live chats as well. So go and watch these live chats on YouTube that's already been, where I've talked about time travel, and now there's hundreds of hearts. I'm drowning in these hearts and faces and stuff that's all popping up. The other Amanda wrote Splitting, but now I'm really out of time, forgive me. Do you know what happens where we go when we die? Do we die or ascend? We can stay around if we want to. If we don't even know we've died and we've got no one that wants to help us move over to the other side, then you end up sort of stuck here. That's why priests come and sort of say to you, go to the light, get lost, go and bug off. But once we ascend again, so we die, we cross over, then we can cross over again, and that's it. That's where our personalities and everything go. That's the end of that. Hello to Sarah. Hello, but I'm sort of out of time here, so do join me on YouTube, Outer History. If you can't find me, just type parts at the end of it. Hello to everyone, says Brenda. Thank you so much. Do we have a choices when we ascend? No. You might get asked to go back if your spirit hasn't done the job it's supposed to have done. Like I say, you make an agreement before your spirit makes an agreement before it joins with your baby, with a baby. And if you haven't successfully done what you was put on Earth to do, they may tell that spirit to go back into your body. And I've heard stories where people are so banged up after a car accident, they're like, hell no, I don't want to go back. But they end up doing it because they feel like they needed to complete whatever the task was that they were supposed to be put on Earth for. Good day from Adelaide in Australia. Hope he or she is well. Love your videos. Please don't stop posting, from Sarah. Thank you. I'll keep going as long as they don't pull me off. What's your interpretation of the other side? I know I'm gone well over and I hope no one's got a moan at me. Other side is literally here. It's here. I know. They can manifest things. So my dad, when I spoke to him on a Ouija board, was in a pub. I was like, really in a pub? Because my dad used to go to pubs, and I was like, no, you can't be in a pub, you need to be on a floaty cloud. But no, they're here. They're literally where we are, but they can manifest things. So for example, they can all play football, and you're like, wow, really? But they manifest the ball, and those with the stronger frequency can actually push the ball that they've manifested over the other side. So they could be right in front of you right now doing something, waving or whatever, but obviously we can't see them. So the other side is literally just here, but they can obviously travel without the need of aeroplanes, etc. They can travel wherever they want. So that's all the other side is. It's just still here. Did you research? Yes, I did. Someone's asked, did I research the SCP search capture projects? I did. I did. I'm actually out of time. I think you're probably going to hate me for this. I did look into it. I want to do some more research because obviously I was just looking at one particular piece of information from that. So I want to get different perspectives on it. I'd not heard of that before, I'll be honest. So it's intrigued me. But because I've not heard of it before, I want to really look into it and see if anything that I've learned from the past can connect with it, so I can make sense of it. Because otherwise, it's a bit heard of it before. I want to really look into it and see if anything that I've learned from the past can connect with it, so I can make sense of it. Because otherwise, it's a bit weird because I've never heard of it before. I think that's the way it works. You're going to probably go round. So I have to go now, but do look me up. I've done loads of live chats, which probably answers some of your questions. So I have to go now, but do look me up. I've done loads of live chats, which probably answers some of your questions on YouTube, Outer History. Just